Good morning and welcome to Morning Tarot. It's Tuesday and we're doing the Suit of Pentacles. Yesterday we did the 2, 3 and 4 of Pentacles, so today is the 5, 6 and 7. Let's get started straight away. My stick is on the wobbly side today, I'm afraid, so bear with it. I'll try not to knock it. I'll just lean around the side a bit. Okay, 5 of Pentacles, also not very focused. The 5 of Pentacles, I think, is actually quite a striking sort of image, and it does look a little bit alarming. So you've got what looks like a church window, like a stained glass window with the pentacles embedded in it, and outside the church, in the snow, you have this kind of an elderly lady dressed in rags with no shoes on, and a man who is walking on crutches, as though kind of struggling to keep up. And there's a real feeling by looking at these figures out in the snow, this sort of old woman in rags and this man on crutches. He actually has a bandage as well on his head, sort of injured, that you're looking at a situation where somebody is not feeling particularly good about things. I look at this and I kind of think sometimes of like the blind leading the blind, almost, when you just don't really know where to go, you don't know whose advice to seek, you don't really know what to listen to. I think that there's a real sense of sort of wanting to get inside. Whenever I look at this, I can see these sort of people out in the cold, you know, really out in the cold in a situation. You're feeling quite depressed, you're feeling quite unhappy. You know, you feel like these figures here, you know, sort of as though the world is against you, so things don't work, things are going wrong. And you feel quite sort of lowly almost and cast down, and it's like these people want to get inside the church, because inside here, this bright window, you get the idea that it's probably warm in there, it's bright, and they're stuck out in the cold and they don't really know how to get inside. So this for me is very much a card that says that somebody is having that feeling, they're going through those kind of emotions and those sensations where whatever's happening, they just feel like they're kind of shut out, like they can't find a way in. Maybe they have like a goal or something that they want to achieve, but they just can't seem to find the way to do it. And the more they try to think of a way to get there, the worse they feel about themselves and the more powerless they feel, and then around and around they go. And there's definitely a sensation as well of feeling quite sorry for yourself, I think, with this card, when you just feel like giving up. And I think there's also a little bit of like a surly aspect where it's like, well, everything's going great for everybody else, you know, they're all in the church, they're all having a good time, and here I am stuck out in the cold. So I think there's definite tendency to feel a bit sorry for yourself and to focus on the negatives. When I see this card and I spread it, I often think that somebody's perhaps focusing very much on the negative in a situation and is really sort of feeling quite badly done to, quite hard done to, and they just can't work out a way to get to where they want to go. Perhaps somebody is trying to pay off bills, they're trying to pay off debt, they've got credit card bills, they've got mortgages, and they're really struggling and struggling and struggling, and they feel that the harder they try, the more debt they get into. And what they actually need to do in that situation is to sit down and assess their spending and assess where they're putting their money. And I think when you see this card, like in that situation, it will be somebody hasn't quite got there yet. So they're still just focused on the fact that they want to pay off this debt and they can't, and they feel like they're struggling and they feel like a pauper. But what they're not actually doing is they're not actually addressing the situation. They're still focusing on how they feel. So it's almost like focusing on a problem instead of focusing on the solution. And I would definitely advise people, when I see this card most of the time, to start looking not at the problem that they're in, not the problems in the situation, the difficult things in the situation, but to try and find a way to look at the solution. They're aware of where they want to go, they want to pay off that debt, or that they want to get a better job. But they have to really look at the way that they can get there and be more constructive about the situation, because until they do that, they're just going to keep going round and round and round in the snow, and they're just going to feel worse and worse and worse and more badly done to, and they're not going to get any worse. It's kind of like standing in your own way a little bit in that kind of situation. The 6 of Pentacles, I think, has actually quite a similar feeling to it. These cards are often like a progression, and they often show sort of different aspects of the situation. So here we're looking at a figure who's very richly dressed, who's carrying this kind of scales, almost like scales of justice and decision, and handing out coins. And these two figures here kind of kneeling in rags at the bottom. So it's like looking at a situation of somebody giving and people begging. And I think when I look at this card in the spread, one or the other will jump out at me. Am I looking at the people on the ground? Am I looking at the person there? Which one is the strongest? Because I think that this card, because it has got the scales in it, so it's a card that can go in different directions. Do you feel like you're the person who is giving, or do you feel like the person who is having to beg? If you feel like the person who is giving, I would say that this situation of giving, there might actually be either a slight feeling of resentment to having to do it, or there might be sort of that tendency to be doing something or giving something, not necessarily money, but giving time, giving energy, giving advice, giving whatever, to make yourself feel good, because it makes you feel quite important. So if we're sort of giving advice to somebody because they're in a bad situation, we might be sort of doling out our advice and then secretly getting a little bit of pleasure out of doing that and thinking, well, you know, look, they're in a bad situation, I'm in a better situation. So it's not necessarily somebody who's giving, I wouldn't think, with extreme generosity. And sometimes you can resent that, because sometimes you might be in a situation where you're like, you know what, this person always comes to me for help, they're always complaining about things, they ask my advice, and I give advice, and I give advice, and I give advice, and they ignore me, and they just go their own way anyway. And I feel like, you know, I'm just pouring into a vacuum, and then they come back and they need help again, so I give advice again, and around we go. And so you can kind of almost feel that slight resentment sometimes of having to give, and it's about sort of maintaining that balance, and this person is holding the balance. And it's very much, this person is very much in the power position as well, in whatever the situation is. So this is the person who is holding the strings, and so that can mean that occasionally, if you're looking at this figure and you're drawn to that figure as the person that you're reading for, it might mean that they are being a bit manipulative as well, because they know that they have the power in a situation, they're in the dominant position and they have control, and maybe they're actually deliberately doling out their energy or doling out their affection in small portions to keep somebody in this situation of feeling like they're having to beg, or having to kind of to perform tricks to get the attention of the other person, because it can be a slightly manipulative power situation as well. And if I'm drawn to these people here at the bottom, then it's looking at that from the reverse. I'm looking at somebody who feels like they're in this position, like they're the one who's having to beg all the time, that they're always having to go for help, they're always needing something, and they actually have to kind of, I don't say debase themselves, but they have to put themselves in a position to get that help from another person, or get that attention from another person, or get that financial aid from another person, or advice from another person. They have to really kind of play up sort of the bad position they're in, and so it can be very damaging to your self-esteem if you feel like you're always the person who's like begging for scraps from somebody for whatever sort of situation or reason that's happening to you. It can be very bad for your self-esteem. It can make you feel quite lowly, and it can make you feel very resentful of the other person, even if the other person, you know, it's not their fault that you're in the position you're in. If you feel like you're really having to like display like your poverty, whatever kind of poverty that is, and really sort of like kneel and beg for something, then it feels bad to you, and it's not a balanced situation. So whether you're looking at this person here as being the focus, these people here, you're actually not getting this balance. You know, it's too much one way and it's too much the other way. Somebody has too much, somebody doesn't have enough, and it's very complex interplay of relation. I find it's very hard card actually to explain, which probably shows. And the final one today is the Seven of Pentacles. Oops, it's a bit low. Put them here. There we are, Seven of Pentacles. Now, Pentacles very much the earthy suit, the suit that kind of talks about finance and jobs and practical things and things that you're working towards in your own life. And this definitely for me is a card of somebody who is working very hard towards a goal. I look at this chap and he's standing here with like fields in the background, he's leaning on his tool, and he's got this kind of almost like it's either a pile of something that he's for no more words, what's the word when you harvest, it's like a pile of stuff that he's harvested and held together, or it's something that he's grown. So I'm looking at a guy here that reminds me of a farmer, somebody who is working very hard, very practically, and just very steadily. So this is a card for me of a steady effort towards a goal, of steady progression, of putting in hard work and being consistent. So I'd advise somebody who saw this in the spread that what they need to do is just keep going a step at a time, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and just take things step by step. You can't rush from a situation or you don't have something that you want, or you're right at the beginning immediately to an end product. It doesn't happen very often. What you need to do is you need to put in effort, and you need to put in sustained effort. I think that this card, with his very steady kind of working, he's obviously had to plant the seed, water it, nourish it, wait for it to grow, harvest it, and gather together. So if this is a finance situation, somebody's having to work very hard and save money a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, and just make this really consistent and steady effort to save what they need. If it is somebody who's working in a job situation, then you just have to keep working hard every day and get that little bit more respect and a bit more respect and do a bit better and work your way towards a promotion and work your way towards a goal. If you're starting your own business and you're looking at this card, then you're looking at somebody who needs to understand that you can't just really be an overnight success in what you're doing, that actually it's hard work that will get you where you need to go, and this consistent effort, this consistent hard work, you will get out what you put into a situation at all times. And I think this card is a real reminder of that. You get out what you put in. If you put in the focus and you put in the effort and you put in the energy and you just work and you retain that kind of thought in your mind that you have to keep working for something, that you just need to steadily step by step up the mountain, then you'll get a lot more out of a situation if you go rushing in for a burst of energy initially and then you sit back and you don't do anything. This is real sustained effort, and that will bring genuine success and lasting success, because that will give you a really strong foundation to build upon for the future. Well, I hope you enjoyed those, and have a lovely day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.